I'm raising the roof of my school bus 16 inches, but why would you raise a roof on a perfectly good school bus?
Why?
That's so much time and effort, and for what? A couple extra inches? I guess men have done crazier things for a couple extra inches. But seriously, why? Well, I'm 6 foot. My bus has an internal height of 6'1".
I'm like 5'11". On Tinder, I'm 6 foot.
And if I'm gonna follow the Chuck Cassidy method for insulating, that means I need 4 inches of XPS on the floor, plus 3 inches of spray foam on the walls and ceiling. That brings my internal height from 6'1" to 5'5". And I don't wanna crouch in my bus the rest of my life. So by adding a 16-inch roof raise, plus more than enough insulation for even the hungriest of buses, that brings my internal height to 6'9".
Naughty.
If you're wondering why I haven't posted in a while, it's because I've been busy working on my house and also my sewer line broke. So I had to pay $10,000 to get that repaired. You don't even want to know what I had to do before they repaired it.
Shitter was full.
Some of you might remember me talking about my sewer line in my previous video. And if you haven't already seen my bus purchase videos 1 and 2, you need to go watch those. Those are hilarious. Now that I have more time on my hands, I've been spending so much time doing bus stuff.
What did he say?
It is so rewarding doing something as difficult and hard as bus stuff.
That's what she said.
I even convinced my friends and family to join the bandwagon and try bus stuff with me. Like all good projects, my roof raise had 5 main steps: extract, cut, raise, weld, and panel. Or for short, ecrep. Now, if you're gonna be doing your own roof raise, you're gonna wanna stick around because I learned at least one valuable tip during each of these steps, and in many cases, multiple, so don't miss these really useful tips. What the heck do I even mean by extract? Well, a better term may have been gut, but Gcrep doesn't really roll off the tongue like a crepe does. Anyways, your bus is gonna come standard with a bunch of shit. And to make life easier, you're gonna wanna remove that all before you do anything else. And my #1 tip during the extraction phase is to use an air chisel to remove rivets. And keep that chisel bit sharp. I sharpen mine about every 50 rivets to keep the chisel sharp and keep it removing rivets fast. And don't follow this guy's video of using an angle grinder to put an X in the rivets to make it easier, because you're just gonna damage the outer skin of your bus and it's gonna cause you frustration later. So just keep a sharp air chisel bit. Trust me. Now on to phase 2. We're gonna cut that bus open like a tin can. Step 1 is the hard cuts. Now those are the words from the famous pro builder Chuck Cassidy. If I had to put hard cuts into my own words, it'd probably be something like the worst friggin' clutch of my life that you just have to shove an angle grinder and a sawzall into the tiniest little spot and it makes you sweat and cry and I just don't want to do it again. So don't ask, okay? Never. Okay. Now that we got over that, hopefully you've finished your hard cuts and you haven't damaged the skin of your roof. Step 2 is the easy cuts, and that's the hat channel. At that point, the best way to do it is to get a speed square, 12-inch speed square, and a metal blade for your circular saw. Lock that speed square in with a pair of locking pliers, and then just run the circular saw on the speed square, and by golly, you'll get the cleanest cut you've ever gotten. Wow. But don't forget, you may also want like a bottle jack or something to put upward pressure on the skin of the top skin, because once you make that cut near the end, it's gonna want to bind on the saw blade. So you want to have something pushing up against it so that you can finish the cut. I ran into that trouble. I kind of just winged it and pulled the saw blade out and figured it out, but I would have appreciated something to not have that happen. Now on to raising the roof. This step should be pretty easy and go really quickly. Unless you're like me and you missed partial hard cuts that you couldn't see because it was dark. And then you're gonna have to cry and find out where you missed them and worry that you're gonna destroy your bus. And then you're gonna friggin' run a sawzall and a circular saw and anything you can into those crevices, and you're gonna let it free and it's gonna go bing and it's gonna spring open. So don't have too much pressure when you realize that. Then you're just gonna raise that bus up with those raisin rods.
There's courtesy of Schooly.com. Thank you, Schooly.com, for supporting this bus raise, even though I paid for them.
Because I would have been screwed without those raising rods. Get it? Because they're threaded rods. I would have been screwed. Eat! It's a terrible joke. You want to know what's better than one welder on a school bus? The welders on the bus go weld, 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 weld. The welders on the bus go weld, 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 all the weld home. Seriously, I could not do this project without my buddy Riley. From cutting and de-riveting to just everything like I threw at him. Even building weld jigs for welding the hat channel together. He was there. I went to the store to go grab a scaffolding while he built the weld jigs based off a photo from a video of Chuck Cassidy. And this is something I can't stress enough. You need some type of jig, whether it's just a clamp and a piece of sheet metal, to make sure that your hat channel is welded in straight and strong. Do not skip this step. But thank you, Riley, again for being there through this whole project. I could not have done it without you, and you even were there for the final stage repaneling. Speaking of repaneling, I devised a system for how to repanel a bus completely alone that is as safe as doing it with 2 or more people. Not.
Sometimes that happens.
But seriously, do not try this method. Unless you are completely alone and have no one in your life that loves you, do not try this method because it is pretty dangerous and you could easily lose a toe, or worse, your desire to make YouTube videos. There are 3 key parts to being able to repanel a bus alone if you absolutely must do it. First is moving sheets. You're gonna need a big, long board that you can clamp to your sheet because that thing is gonna move like a fish if you do not clamp something rigid to it. Secondly, you're gonna need a way to prop it up. I use sawhorses, that worked great. And finally, you're gonna need really long ratchet straps that go all the way around the bus so that you can ratchet it up. And you're gonna do this in pairs. So you're gonna have 4 ratchet straps around the bus and you're gonna do 2 at a time. And then once those get almost bottomed out, then you're gonna pull the next 2 up and start those 2. But be careful not to bottom out your ratchet straps while there's a load hanging on them like I did, and then you'll have a suspended load fall on you, and that can be very scary. So don't try this unless you absolutely have to. If you can help it, you're gonna want a second person. And the key to doing it with 2 people is you need first an elevated platform like scaffolding. That is the bare minimum, you need that. Do not go with like ladders. That is just sketchy and scary. Get the platform set at the right height. Get some 2 ratchet straps. They don't have to be as long as the other ones. Get them 3 to 4 inches below where you think the panel is gonna start to go under the top roof panel. And then lift your sheet up, hang it on the ratchets, and then ratchet it the rest of the way up and square it up, drill it through the corners and the holes, and then rivet it so that it holds there. And then you just come back in 3 to 6 months once the winter's gone because you didn't have enough time to rivet it. Or maybe that was just me. But anyways, make sure you rivet that thing down, at least 3 rivets in each corner to hold it. Then the final step is really to just use a bunch of screwdrivers or pry bars to pry that sheet under the bottom rub rail. And now you're kind of almost done, other than finishing the rivets all the way around the bus. But that was it. So you made it this far, huh? Well, you either fell asleep minutes ago, or I somehow managed to entertain you this whole time. If that's true, please consider subscribing and liking this video. And if you haven't already, go check out my first and second series on getting this bus, because that was an epic journey. I flew halfway across the US, spent 6 grand, and broke down 10 hours away from home. And it was just a blast. So please go check those out if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.